Many years ago, Lyndon LaRouche said that the worst thing that could happen to this country is that the people will lose the moral will to survive, and they'll lose the morality to stand up and fight. And so we're going to all be slaves to this system if we don't move now and change it. I'm saying fight. The worst thing that will happen if you fight is that you'll die with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
As opposed to living on your knees like a damn slave.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for being here. That was my longtime friend Harley Schlanger talking about the fight of our lives, which has already begun. The question is our nation collectively too corrupt to save itself? In this one, we talk about our fallen state and our fallen world, and the biggest sex trafficking scandal in the history of our nation, and the subsequent cover-up. Thanks so much for tuning in, friends. Before we start, just a quick word about a valued sponsor. We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop taking those injections, they regain an average of 60% of the weight within a year. Even worse, most of that gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they began. That's why I know you're going to be obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override your body's system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help your body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. You'll get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. GLP-1 Elevate supports your goals while protecting your muscle, so you can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithsgt.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head to trimwithsgt.com right now to claim your 50% discount before it expires. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks for being here for this February 12th edition of SGT Report. I think if you're paying attention, folks, the spirit of evil is weighing heavy on your heart as it is on mine. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Jeffrey Epstein is or was specifically today with my good friend Harley Schlanger. He wrote about this in November. He's continuing to write about it to this day because I got to tell you, folks, it absolutely assaults my soul that Fox News has been covering Samantha Guthrie's mother's kidnapping for almost 2 weeks now. I don't know how long it's been, but every single day, 24/7, that's all they talk about, as though there's nothing going on in the world more important than that. And I want to start with my X feed today before I bring Harley on. He's listening, but this is literally what I woke up to today in my X feed, guys, in order. I want to just go through 4 or 5 of these news items in order. Here's Donald Trump. Still doesn't understand why people give a damn about these Epstein emails.
President, I know you've urged people to move on, but I'm curious, why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say let them have it.
All right, just so people understand, the man standing to Trump's left is Howard Lutnick. And Howard Lutnick lived directly next door to Jeffrey Epstein for like 2 decades in New York City. They had a wall that divided their living spaces, folks. The same Howard Lutnick who survived 9/11 when his company Cantor Fitzgerald literally blew up on 9/11 and more than 500 of his employees perished. But Howard survived because he wasn't there that day. Let me scroll down. This is literally what I woke up to today. Fair and free markets, that's silver. Market's absolutely imploding today because the bankers continue to short because they don't want any respite for the plebs. And are you ready for this? This is literally what I woke up to today. Listen to this. Okay, so that is the deranged lunatic, Jesse, who, we're told, shot 35 innocent people in Canada, including his mother, sister, teacher, and young children. 10 people are dead, we're told. And the government, instead of helping this human being, if we can call Jesse that, instead of helping this person with mental illness, they just pushed the trans stuff on him, told him he was a girl, pumped him full of hormones, estrogen, I would imagine, SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, making the kid absolutely nuts. I mean, you want to talk about demonic possession. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I woke up to today. By the way, the DOJ report of a kidnapped girl at 5, taken to underground locations where she was kept in stalls with many other girls as Epstein and grown men walked by and picked them for rape. This is what I woke up to today in my X feed. How about this one? An open-air crematorium in full view for the entire world. The Israeli army dropped a Gazan U.S.-supplied thermite and thermobaric bombs that burn at 3,500 degrees Celsius, literally vaporizing the people who come in contact with this weapon. This is what I woke up to today in my X feed. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has lost its mind, and we're witness to it. Harley Schlanger's here. Harley, that's what I woke up to today. This is not a happy day for me because the world is really, really sick. It's run by sick, sick monsters.
Well, I'm happy to say, Sean, that as long as we have the courage to face it, we have a chance to change it. And I think the evil is now out in the open more than it's ever been. And I say this as someone who's been following this for 45 years, 50 years. I know the networks going back to the 70s and 80s. I'm just finishing a part on the Epstein case that shows what was going on and how the British were orchestrating this as part of the move into the next phase of the Great Reset. But what we're seeing is people are starting to get out in the streets and protest. It's possible the Starmer government will collapse. I just want to say one thing on the first clip you showed of President Trump. He made the point when he was running that he's going to clean out the deep state, both in 2016 and in 2024. The fact that he doesn't understand what the Epstein case represents is why the deep state is still able to disrupt his intention. I think he has some good intentions, but he should read my articles. He's leaving us unprotected in the face of these satanic figures. I mean, while the Epstein case is about more than sexual perversion, how can you ignore the atrocities done to young boys and girls by these people who think they're above reproach, that they have no one, they're not accountable. And so we have to have a real campaign to educate people to understand the nature of evil. You can see it as you just showed it in these videos. The question is, who's behind it and how do we cut it off? And I think that's what we want to talk about today.
Okay, well, let's do that. But here's the problem. And you can't make this stuff up, folks. What happened yesterday is Harley and I are having this conversation with Pam Bondi being grilled by both sides of the aisle. I know Trump hates Thomas Massie. I happen to respect Thomas Massie a great deal, and a gentleman named Ro Khanna. Now, this actually happened yesterday, guys, and it was so bad. The exchange was so bad. The optics are so bad, even worse than TPUSA in the cover up of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Like, TPUSA couldn't fumble the ball more. Neither could Erica Kirk. They just are experts at fumbling the ball in the public space. The optics terrible at TPUSA. Only Pam Bondi could do a worse job than Erica Kirk. So bad, in fact, that kids are anime mogging Pam Bondi for her performance yesterday. This from Owen Schroyer. He shared this, and I said, this actually happened.
アメリカ国民に説明できるか。なぜお前は子供を人身売買し犯したスグマン庁舎を守っているのか。なぜお前を人身売の儀式を犯した億万庁舎を守っているのか。
了解。事実を淡々と述べるトーンで、ダウ平均は今5万ドルを超えています。S&P は7000部前、ナスディックも過去最高を更新しています。それこそ話題にすべきことです。それがエプスタインのファイドと何の関係があるんですか？本気ですか？
Maybe I should find the actual clip of Pam Bondi's hysteria. And you know what occurred to me as we cover this news today is that the Constitution is wholly inadequate for an immoral people. Like, where are the American people? I guess enjoying the Super Bowl, the Grammys, the Guthrie kidnapping. Where are the... Nobody's marching in the streets over these emails. So I guess this is the normalization of what? Pedophilia? Child trafficking? Child
Satanism.
murder? Yeah, Satanism, cannibalism. The Constitution is wholly inadequate for an immoral people. That's John Adams. Quote, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other, end quote. And do you know where I first heard that? I'm a fairly well-educated person, but do you know what made me recall that quote today, Harley? Because I heard somebody say it. You know who said it? Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk informed his audience about Christianity and the moral backbone of our nation and what it was built on. I don't know. We're losing control pretty quickly. Am I being hyperbolic? Can you help me see our cup is half full, Harley?
Well, we can get to that, but I want to point out there's another person who made a similar statement in the last couple of days, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, who repeated his concern that the West has become a post-Christian and post-truth society. And he said he doesn't understand why they don't see the self-destructive nature of what they're doing. And I think what you just pointed out, I mean, that little clip there, that was very close to what Bondi actually said. And the fact that these people who call themselves the guardians of morality don't see that the cover-up of the Epstein case was giving a free pass to this kind of behavior, this kind of pedophilia. This is the potential for the collapse of civilization. And the question of morality cannot just be a personal one. You can't just say, I'm good, I don't eat people, so I'm doing my share. No, you've got to create a change in the population so that we no longer tolerate this kind of behavior. And I don't mean go walking down the street whacking people on the head who don't agree with you. I mean actually trying to educate people and bring to them the sense of what it means to be human. And this is what's been lost. And many years ago, Lyndon LaRouche said that the worst thing that could happen to this country is that the people will lose the moral will to survive, and they'll lose the morality to stand up and fight. And he said, as long as there are a few of us left who will do that, we must do that and provide the example. And I think we're suffering now from the fact that outside of, you mentioned Ro Khanna, Massey, there are a few people like that are out there fighting. The Putin is committed to that kind of fight. Lavrov, there are handfuls of people in virtually every country. But the predominance in the West of officials who are not just atheists or agnostics, they're actually Satanists. And they believe that human beings are beasts and that you keep them in control either with a Leviathan, as Thomas Hobbes said, that is state that has the power to crush them, or, as John Locke said, an ability to make deals that will give them a certain amount of comfort. Those are the two models that exist in the West right now, the libertarian model on the one side and the authoritarian on the other. Whatever happened to republicanism? The idea that we as citizens must take responsibility for the direction of the nation.
It's been engineered out of us. It's been engineered out of the populace by these Bolshevik schools, by the communist ways they teach in the schools. You know, I want to play Pam Bondi on the record here in her own words so people understand that that wasn't just animation making fun of Pam Bondi. That literally is how she behaved yesterday and literally what she was saying. Look at how well the stock market is doing. Everybody's getting rich. Why do you care about Epstein butchering babies? Why do you care about the clients that trafficked children, that he trafficked children to, and then those children ended up murdered? Case in point, Prince Andrew evidently maybe involved in the murder of at least one person, according to these email drops. You know, I just want to, before I play Pam Bondi, Harley, I just want to share this with you too. Candace said in a broadcast just a few weeks ago, the Bolsheviks are here. The Bolsheviks are here in the United States. So when you mentioned Putin and Russia pointing these things out, that the West appears to be run by satanic figureheads, Satanists, right?
Yeah.
The Bolsheviks are here. Well, Putin knows what happened during the Bolshevik Revolution. Millions and millions of Christians were murdered. And you know what? I bet they ate babies during the Bolshevik Revolution too. And the Bolsheviks, I think, are here. Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump is a Bolshevik, but this stuff should put the fear of God in people, is what I'm trying to say, Harley.
You know, Putin said that what we've seen for many years is the establishment in the West is filling their bellies with human flesh. And he said they haven't yet realized that the vampire's ball has ended.
That's right.
And I think, you know, as much as people like to be critical of Putin, they have no idea of what he is trying to do to rally his country the same way they were rallied to defeat the Nazis. And what's he up against? You know, I live here in Germany, which is, you know, it's a beautiful country. It's got, with the exception of a brief period in the middle of the 20th century, it's got a great history, great culture. And yet, after World War II, the people who defeated the Nazis came in with a collective guilt theory that said that everyone who was German bears responsibility for what the Nazis did. And they made it almost made people ashamed to be German. And one of my first experiences with this was I came with a group of Americans to promote the idea of American-German friendship. And we went to a restaurant with my German friends. This is 25 years ago. And we decided to do something nice for them, to join them at dinner and sing the German national anthem, which is a beautiful song written by Joseph Haydn. And we started singing, and they literally crawled under the table. And they said, "You can't do that here. You can't do that." And this is the same people who are opposed to the idea of national sovereignty. They say that if you want to be a sovereign nation, you're really being a Nazi authoritarian. And that's what you're talking about when you talk about how they change history, change language to fit a globalist idea of man as a beast. And the only thing you can do to be successful is figure out how to defeat the other beasts to get a bigger share for yourself.
Yeah.
That's not the American system. That's not the American way of life. That's not a Christian way of life or a Judeo-Christian way of life. And certainly what we see in Israel with the Zionists doesn't represent biblical Judaism. It represents the same kind of Satanism that we see with the Epstein case. So
the through line, by the way, the through line there is a specific tie to what you just said. One of the emails from Jeffrey Epstein says, "As you may know, I represent the Rothschilds." Okay, so there's your connection to Israel and the Rothschilds and the Satanists specifically. But what I just want to impress on the audience is that we are at a crossroads for for the very soul and the future of this nation, in the sense that we are being ruled by people who are covering up for crimes so unimaginably horrific that the normies dare not even dream that these things exist. I mean, they're better off watching the Samantha Guthrie coverage of the mom's kidnapping because, this stuff is so horrible that, why would we want to alert the populace, mainstream media? Here's Kash Patel, who wants you to believe that Tyler Robinson acted alone and assassinated Charlie Kirk. Okay, that's what he wants you to believe. And here's what he wants you to believe about the Epstein emails.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay, so that's Kash Patel. And here's Pam Bondi yesterday.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about.
I can't even believe. Do these people not get any coaching before they go to speak in front of the public? It's like Erica Kirk. They're both blonde, by the way. They both have relationships with Donald J. Trump. I'm starting to believe that Pam Bondi, maybe, I don't know, somebody can dig into this. I think sleuths have on X. There may be some sexual connection between Pam Bondi and Donald J. Trump. I don't know, but Erica Kirk was the magical pageant winner in a Trump pageant. She's obviously an intelligence asset. I mean, Harley, the whole world is watching this clown show, and I'm personally embarrassed by it.
Well, that's because you're someone who lives in a real world, even though the world around you is going crazy. It's hard to wrap your mind around the degree to which you can see a collapse of culture in your own lifetime. I mean, the Roman Empire took 400 or 500 years to collapse. I was born in 1949, and I started becoming aware of history and the development of society in the late 60s. And despite the craziness at the time, the rock, sex, drug culture that was introduced, there was still a morality to it. People were opposed to turning over to the government the powers to determine their lives. Now, the problem is that what has been done is they've used the fact that the people running the government are corrupt, to say that government in itself is corrupt. And this gets back to the John Adams quote. Adams and the founding fathers believed that if you had a moral people, that you could have a government that would govern to the benefit of all of them. And the idea was to establish institutions of self-government so that you could have debate, you could have disagreement, you could have a party system, so to speak, as long as you had the ability of people to have an honest, open discussion. And this is something I've learned from looking at Charlie Kirk, that even though I don't agree with him on everything that he said, he did believe that the human mind, because of the freedom that we have, the potential freedom, and the innate creativity that we were granted by our Creator, that we have the ability to discuss and come up with better solutions. But we've lost that. We no longer believe in that. And we believe in power. And what Bondi is saying is, unfortunately, the way most people think. If you have money, you're good. And the way people are making their money right now is gambling. It's speculative casino system. And the fact that something's over $50,000 today doesn't mean it will be tomorrow. Look at what you just showed on the price of silver. Look at what happened to Bitcoin. The idea that Lutnick, the the Commerce Secretary, is a big backer of Bitcoin. What's behind Bitcoin? It's an agreement There's nothing real to it, as opposed to what we used to have, a physical economy where improving infrastructure or agricultural productivity. Instead, we have this artificial intelligence fakery, which is another bubble. And the key to artificial intelligence is their ability to use certain capabilities to manipulate and control. And that's what we're headed toward. And who are the people that are pushing artificial intelligence? They're both the left and the right tied to the Epstein crowd. Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison. Ellison is considered a conservative, a libertarian, the second or third richest man in the world, the guy who bought TikTok. Ellison's closest friend is Tony Blair, who's an immoral Satanist. Ellison has given 360 million pounds to the Tony Blair Institute, which is promoting the Great Reset of Klaus Schwab and Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. So, it's easy to put together a list of who these evil guys are. The question is, why are so few people speaking out on this? And I have to say, Sean, I was somewhat enthusiastic about watching Ro Khanna and Tom Massey together, which shows that you can be a liberal or a conservative, but if you're honest, you find common ground, as opposed to most of these so-called liberals or conservatives who use the label, but essentially are completely controlled.
Yeah, let me just add to that. We don't deserve to exist as a country at all if we can't stand up for children and babies. Okay, that's full stop. That's it. And I guess there is a whole segment of the population that will worship at the feet of Israel, regardless of Israel's crimes in Gaza and Palestine. And I want nothing to do with those people, because those people are brainwashed and I think they're sick. And by supporting that kind of behavior, that kind of genocidal behavior, you're complicit. So let's talk specifically about what was Jeffrey Epstein really, your article and article part 2 that you've been working on and you've released because you're always ahead of the curve here. But Jeff Epstein may still be alive. Just so y'all know, I think they jailbroke Jeffrey Epstein. That's what I think happened. That's how powerful these people are. So I want to share this email from the Epstein files and review what I got in an email from Harley. He wrote, "The Epstein files are an open window to view the complete corruption of a degenerate ruling establishment fighting for survival. Especially significant are references to Zionist and British intelligence. The UK establishment is totally destabilized and may opt for more false flags to keep their wars going." That was from Harley Schlanger. Here is an email people should be aware of. Pam Bondi. Maybe Pam didn't know about this one. "Back in the 90s, Ghislaine Maxwell acquired a girl for a modeling career. Instead of modeling, she was sold as a slave for sex and torture. Prince Andrew, who was an accessory to her death, as he tortured her and me to force her murder." This from Brian Miller, we're not sure who, although all of these files are being unredacted. That's the next shoe to drop. Names are being named, including that Sultan in Saudi Arabia, I believe, the CEO of one of the world's largest shipping companies. I think it's called DP World, maybe? Yeah, torture video. Evidently, he had a torture video that was celebrated by Jeff Epstein. That's in the emails. So I don't know exactly what Pam Bondi's talking about, Harley. Do you?
Well, just to be clear, he was not from Saudi Arabia. I think he was from one of the Emirates. The Suleiman is his name. But there are a lot of people like that in the files. One of them was Larry Summers, the Treasury Secretary under Clinton. Larry Summers was very, very close with Peter Mandelson, who was forced to resign as ambassador to the United States. And Starmer said, well, he didn't know that Mandelson had a close relationship with Epstein. How could he not know that? Mandelson bragged about it. Mandelson was one of these people who enjoyed watching people be miserable. And, his career was made by trashing he worked very closely with Starmer to defeat Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Jeremy Corbyn was the head of Labor, and he was a leftist. He was open about that, a democratic socialist. But Corbyn was anti-Zionism. He didn't believe that the Israelis had a right to the land by interpreting the Bible in the way that God gave a real estate contract to the Zionists. And Corbyn was destroyed by a slander campaign that he was anti-Semitic. And that's how Starmer ended up becoming the head of the Labor Party. So you look at these case studies, and Bondi's another one. Another one I'm concerned about is Susie Wiles.
Oh, God.
Susie Wiles is part of this Florida network that is behind the power of Marco Rubio and various elements of the police state apparatus.
And Netanyahu, she literally worked on Netanyahu's campaign in 2020?
Yeah.
Wild, right? I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up, guys. No wonder they rolled out the red carpet for Bibi Netanyahu just the other day, clearing the streets
Again.
of motorcade, the red carpet for Bibi Netanyahu again to come here and beg America to bomb Iran and send our boys over there.
Well, and let me, on that point, say something about Marco Rubio. Because Rubio grew up in a home with his stepbrother, I believe, which was a drug center. And while he was a kid, he was there occasionally delivering drugs.
Sorry for a quick break, guys. The rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting. They are acting. They're buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. This is not investment advice. Always do your own due diligence and consult a licensed financial planner with big decisions. But while everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioned. They understand that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com and download your free wealth protection kit right now. That's noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com. Because the rules are changing, you need to make sure you're ready. The link is below.
Because Rubio grew up in a home with his stepbrother, I believe, which was a drug center. And while he was a kid, he was there occasionally delivering drugs. Rubio then became a patron saint of the Bay of Pigs veterans. Now, the Bay of Pigs veterans were essentially a CIA operation that was launched against the Castro government, but also against the Kennedy administration. I don't know if you know this, Sean, but 4 of the people who were involved in the Watergate break-in were Bay of Pigs veterans. And they were the ones who were part of a Cuban drug running operation. And these are the people that Rubio is saying we have to support. Rubio is one of the dirtiest guys. Now, how did he end up as the Secretary of State? There's a man named Paul Singer who proudly describes himself as a vulture capitalist, not a venture capitalist, but vulture capitalist. What Singer does is he goes around the world looking for distressed assets, that is, bonds and stocks and things of that sort that have a high face value but have collapsed in value because they don't make any money. And he buys them up for a penny or a nickel on the dollar, then goes into courts with the backing of the U.S. government and gets the government to rule that those bonds have to be redeemed at full face value. That's who Paul Singer is. He gave millions of dollars to Rubio in 2016 to be president. When Rubio lost, he licked his wounds for a while. Then he came back in 2024 and gave millions of dollars to Trump. And he got Rubio in as Secretary of State. Another one of these guys is Larry Ellison of Oracle,
Yep,
who
we
took
talked about
over.
that.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned Ellison has been a leading contributor to Tony Blair.
Yeah.
But Ellison is also a major Zionist contributor. He's one of the leading contributors to the Israel Defense Forces. That is an American.
No, let me interject. Okay, 100% true. And when you mentioned earlier, when you brought up Ellison and you said he's sort of a conservative libertarian, I thought, well, I guess that all goes out the window when you are at the very top of that list, before those two things, libertarian or conservative, is Zionist. That kind of negates the other stuff, in my view. So it's very interesting that he also was allowed to buy TikTok, because we're told we can't let TikTok fall into the hands of the Chinese. That would be a national security issue. So they let Larry buy it, and guess who is now over there monitoring speech? Literally, IDF soldiers.
Yeah,
Literally, they have IDF sitting over there monitoring the free speech, the speech of Americans. And here's
your
what
phone conversations.
it's such a shit show. Harley, literally, these are the times that try men's souls. So, our fallen world and our corrupt governments are being exposed by the Epstein emails. And when you think about our fallen world, normies, please spread this far and wide, because the normies are never going to believe what I'm about to say. What we have discovered via the Epstein emails, the new ones, is that the intelligence agencies, politicians, and well-connected billionaires are all part of the big club. And here's some of the things in which they partake: drug trafficking, arms trafficking, human trafficking, ritual sacrifices, child rape, child murder, cannibalism, and yes, of course, genocide. Now, evidently, Francis Derby, an American chef, seems to be always ready to cook for Epstein and his clients that lovely jerky meat that they love so much, which many people believe is baby flesh, or white tuna, which at least this person believes is the dead body, a frozen body of a white woman. There are 1,320 citations regarding cannibalism, and perhaps this chef specifically. So, what was or is Jeffrey Epstein really, Harley Schlanger? I think it gets a lot darker than even what we've discovered so far.
Well, and that's in this article, the picture there was of Michael Milken. Now, who is Michael Milken? He's considered one of these guys who liberated the markets from control, from regulation, and freed up the stock markets with his junk bond operations. Now, what were his junk bond operations? Milken could raise tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars overnight, put it in the hands of someone like Nelson Peltz or Ronald Lauder, so they could use that money to go buy major corporations, buy them up and then break them apart and sell them off for a profit. Where did that money come from for the junk bonds? It came from the Meyer Lansky mob, the Max Fisher mob, the hardcore organized crime that was preying on our population through prostitution rings, gambling rings, and drug trafficking, and people like Edgar Bronfman. Now, Les Wexner, who is the person who picked up Epstein and gave Epstein his first $200 million to put him into play, Les Wexner and Edgar Bronfman founded something called Mega. And Mega was the first of the so-called Zionist lobby groups in Washington that funneled tens of millions of dollars to buy Congress. And Wexner had a connection to someone named Meshulam Riklis, who was part of this organized crime network. Riklis's closest friend was none other than Ariel Sharon, who launched jihads against the Palestinians in the 90s and early 2000. So if you look at this network, what you see is that they figured out how to launder money, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, up until 1987, when it became too much money to use through the Federal Reserve System. So they decided they needed something that's other than cash. You know, if, for example, the RJR Nabisco takeover in 1987 was $28 billion. It took 3 or 4 days to get that money through the Federal Reserve System. So what did they come up with? Financialization, derivatives, What is a derivative? We talk about Bondi. The name itself tells you a derivative is something, it's a financial instrument derived from something of value, but has no value in itself. That means it's nothing. It's funny money. And yet there's $2.4 quadrillion of derivative obligations on the books of banks. That's going to blow up at some point because we're in a constant boom bust cycle. Who's going to pay for it? You will. The taxpayer will, just as we had to pay for the mortgage-backed securities that blew up in 2008. That's what this system is about. We moved away from physical economy, from goods production, into this specialization, financialization. And Sean, to be perfectly honest, this is a move towards slavery, debt slavery.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, no one's going to be able to get out from under debt. The inflation's going up, the ability to borrow is being lost, the ability to produce is being allowed only for the military industrial complex and the AI networks. And so we're going to all be slaves to this system if we don't move now and change it.
Yep. This is what I've been saying for a very, very long time. In fact, I titled some videos, interviews, I don't know, not that long ago, with this very language, "We are all Gazans now." Candace just made this point as she showed Gaza, Palestine, just absolutely leveled and decimated by these people. And she remarked about the babies still buried under the rubble. And she said, you know who's going to have to clean all this up so Trump can have his hotels and they can just turn this into the new Qatar? American soldiers. Our American boys will probably have to go over there and clean all that up, and then they'll suffer from the post-traumatic stress of having to deal with all these dead children in the rubble. And I got to tell you, folks, I'm not being hyperbolic. In fact, I've got a phone call tomorrow with my good friends, Attorney Todd Callender and Dr. Lee Vliet. And Dr. Lee Vliet, God bless her soul, I know she still supports this administration, and I'm trying to figure out if I can do that in any way, shape, or form. I certainly can't in regards to Pam Bondi, that soulless, vapid woman, and Kash Patel, that soulless, vapid piece of garbage who's covering up the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the Epstein crimes. Now, this is what happened yesterday in Iran. That is a statue of Baal being burned. And you can see, and I don't know if this is true, Harley, but if this is true, let me share this. This can't possibly be true, can it? Bibi Netanyahu says Iran burned a statue of Baal to declare war on us. We're monitoring the situation. Is it possible that he actually takes offense to a statue of Baal being burned? Help me through it. Help me through it, Harley. I'm struggling here.
When it comes to Netanyahu, anything's possible. He's an example of a Satanist. And the only thing missing with him is his yarmulke doesn't have room for his horns.
Yeah.
But the problem you have with the Iran situation, and this is just an example, the Iranians are not attacking us. And they did adhere, according to the Atomic Energy Agency, of not building nuclear weapons. But we tried to overthrow their government. And how do we do it? With sanctions, with embargo, by starving their population. And what did the Iranian government do to try and stop that? They told the Iranian people that it was the United States sanctions which is causing them to go out into the streets demanding food. And the Iranian people believed them and backed down. And Trump saw that. And his military saw it. And the military said to him, if you try a regime change in Iran, you're going to have to do it with boots on the ground. And we'll lose anywhere from 500 to 50,000 soldiers. And I think that's why President Trump, wisely in this case, decided to try negotiations. So what did Netanyahu do? He flew over to try to convince Trump we need to use a nuclear bomb to take out Iran.
It occurs to me as we're having this conversation that every single president is beholden to these banksters, the Rothschild, the ruling class. Okay, look at the U.S. national debt, $39 trillion. Whether or not Trump has been involved in some of the crimes the Epstein crimes. And there is evidence to suggest he did partake in some bad stuff, folks. But these banksters have every president by the balls. And the last president who really stood up to them, John F. Kennedy, had his head blown off. By
Yeah.
the way, I missed something in our fallen world, that list of things these people partake in. I forgot to mention wet works. Just about every single time Epstein says whoops, whoops, it means murder, folks. It's all over the Epstein files. Making fun of little children. One little girl said, Jesus saved my life. Whoops, she's dead. Whoops, this one too. Whoops is all over these emails, folks. I don't even know what to make of any of this at this point, Harley, unless God himself is literally allowing the world to see just how evil the ruling class is and has been for not just decades, centuries, centuries and centuries and centuries, going all the way back to the beginning. Do I have it wrong? Please tell me I have
Well,
it.
no, there's always been a satanic element on the planet. And the question is, are there enough people who are good and who see in other people the potential to be good? Because that's this idea of loving your neighbor and acting toward your neighbor the way you'd wish to have your neighbor act toward you. The golden rule, that's the essence of real Christian values. And that was expressly the basis of the emergence of the nation state in the 17th century. The principle of the Peace of Westphalia, non-interference in other nations' affairs, but work for the benefit of the other. And that led to before that, it led to the Golden Renaissance, the development of industry, of science, Kepler, Leibniz, the American Revolution. The American Revolution was an example of something where good overcame evil. The colonies were run by the British, and the founding fathers found enough good people who were willing to risk their lives for this idea of freedom and representative government. And the American people have been rallied in the past on several occasions to take up that responsibility. We haven't had anyone who's tried to do that since Kennedy. And I think the fact that Kennedy was not just killed, but the cover-up. And then also, if you listen to the speeches of Martin Luther King, what you find is this belief in man in the image of God. And to me, that's the most powerful image we have. And the question then is, can we find in ourselves those godlike qualities that are willing to act for the good of mankind? And that's what our country was created to do. Doesn't mean we turn our back on evil, but that's what we're doing now in the name of individual freedom. That's what we see Bondi and we see the DOJ doing, turning their back on the satanic network of Epstein in the name of preserving so-called freedom. There's no freedom in that. If you allow children to be abused, beaten, killed, have their freedoms taken away from them, their potential taken away from them, how can you look yourself in the mirror? And, unfortunately, too many people are willing to turn away and say, there's nothing I can do.
Well,
Sean, let me just say, if people are interested in going deeper into this question of where Epstein got his money, the two-part series, and I'm finishing the part 3 today. I can make them available if people write to me. I can send the links that we have to the Executive Intelligence Review. And what I go through in there is the names of the people who did this, the names of the people who are the organized crime networks and the professors and the think tankers and others who set up this system to brainwash people into thinking you have no choice but to live with it. And I think it's important because the man who educated me in this, Lyndon LaRouche, was persecuted by these people.
Yep.
He was targeted by the Anti-Defamation League, which is this organization supposedly defending Jewish rights, which is actually an organized crime operation designed to destroy the individual freedom that we actually do have in the United States. So if people are interested, you can write to me at harleysch@gmail.com. Ask for the Epstein reports. I'll send them to you. And if you want to have a discussion about what we have to do, I'm always open to doing that. I have a lot of people on my contact list who have been people who I met through your SGT report.
Yep. Well, I know you do, and we're not done yet. I will leave the links below as well to these two articles. You conclude this latest one with this. Among this network were two billionaires, Les Wexner and Leon Black, who used the wealth created by Milken's monsters to finance Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, one of the 6 redacted names that were unredacted, thanks to Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna, one of the names on that list was Les Wexner. The
That's
other
right.
name on that list was Sultan Ahmed Sulayem, the head of DP World, the company which controls 10% of the global shipping, folks. 10% of global shipping goes through DP World, and the head of that company, Sultan Ahmed Sulayem, is the one who had the torture video. So,
which he shared with Epstein.
Yeah, which he shared with Epstein. And here's what I was driving at as it relates to the Rothschilds, the banksters, have every president by the balls. What if, when Bibi came to town, I think that was yesterday, right, Harley, as we're having this conversation?
Yeah.
Bibi comes to Washington, D.C. He's going to tell everybody the way it's going to go. And if he gets any pushback at all, they show everybody what they have the power to do to our markets. Because this is the NASDAQ today. The same NASDAQ Pam Bondi was so excited about yesterday. I mean, they could collapse this whole system at will. So what are they asking? They're asking for an end to this Epstein nonsense. I'm just positing that that's a possibility, Harley. Right? It's a threat. Stop it.
Sure.
You do what we say. You bomb Iran. Maybe this isn't even about Epstein. Maybe it's really about Trump not bombing Iran when he's told by Bibi Netanyahu to bomb Iran. You don't bomb Iran? Okay, we're going to take your markets down. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row. We could crash this whole damn system. You know, by the way, the bond market dwarfs the stock market. I didn't hear Pam Bondi talking about the bond collapse. I mean, you know how many problems this country has with $39 trillion in debt? And Pam Bondi wants to sit there and say, hey, don't push the big red button that Catherine Austin Fitts has talked about. Don't push the big red button. You're going to destroy your own 401k. Why are you talking about the Epstein emails? Don't push the big red button. Do you know that that is an allegory, literally, that Catherine Austin Fitts shared?
Let's pretend there's a big red button up here on the lectern. And if you push that button, you can stop all hard narcotics trafficking in your community, your state, your country tomorrow, thus offending the people who control $500 billion to $1 trillion of annual dirty money. And so I said, who here will push the button? And out of 100 people, only one would push the button. And I said to the other 99, why would you not push the button? And they said, we don't want our mutual funds and our IRAs to go down in price. We don't want our government checks to stop, and we don't want our taxes to go up.
And she's 100% right. The average American who's invested in the stock market doesn't want to see their 401k or their IRAs destroyed. So enough with the Epstein talk, folks. It was Catherine Austin Fitts who predicted that most people would be unwilling to push the big red button to expose all of the crimes and bring down the deep state if it meant their IRAs went to zero. I think that's sort of the sad fact of what we're up against, Harley, to some extent.
Well, it is. And the reason for that is that people don't believe in the principle of the nation state anymore. You know, they've bought the line. People say that they're for sovereignty. And yet, you look at what President Trump, under the influence of Rubio and others, has been saying recently about, Cuba or Venezuela or Greenland or Canada. These are not particularly good countries, but it's up to their people to try and figure out what to do. And the idea that we have the right to cut off their food and medical supplies. And by the way, this is the most important point about that. If that can be done to other countries, it can be done to our country also. And it will be done, because the networks that are running the banking system and the financial system and the trading system have contingencies if the United States elects the wrong person. And they say that we elected the wrong person twice, Trump in 2016 and Trump in 2024. 2017 to 2021, they did everything they could to destroy him. And total fraud, the Russiagate, which, by the way, was orchestrated by these same British networks working with the Obama administration. He came in this time with a head of steam. We thought that Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel would fight, and now we see that they're not fighting. And I'm not sure why, but I think it's because they've lost their hope that the American people will stand up and fight. And now Trump is being manipulated around the line that the Democrats will win back the House in November and Trump will be impeached. Now, that's a fight we should take. And I'm not saying support Trump per se. I'm saying we have to have a national mobilization against this deep state. And we have to be heard and be visible and educate people to understand what it really is. And I applaud you, Sean, because I know you've been doing this for years. I know sometimes it's a lonely battle. I have the same kind of thing. I'm still on the Ukrainian Secret Service hit list.
I know you are. Look, anybody who dares to speak truth at this point is a target of the deep state. By the way, I've really had it with Zero Hedge. It used to be my go-to website. I still go and check it out every day, but God, do they suck. Stressed silver slips? Slips, huh? Yeah, slips under the weight of probably more than 1 billion ounces of paper silver flooding the market today. They note silver, software, Bitcoin, same crowd, same risk. Well, I disavow that. I don't think the silver bugs, most are not Bitcoin fans. Now, I happen to own both, but most folks that I know that are gold bugs and silver bugs loathe Bitcoin. So stressed silver slips, never the truth from Zero Hedge. By the way, Zero Hedge, the same Zero Hedge, Harley, that has absolutely 100% ignored all of the incredible investigative journalism Candace Owens has done into the investigation of TPUSA, now Erica Kirk specifically, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Zero Hedge has ignored all of it. All of it. So, by the way, is the Gateway Pundit. So I don't have any more room left for these people that will not stand for children and will not stand for truth in the two biggest stories of our time, the Epstein emails proving Pizzagate is real and the assassination of Charlie Kirk in broad daylight. I had no patience for people that won't cover that because those are the two biggest stories of our time right now, in my opinion.
I would agree. I have a great deal of admiration for what Candace Owens is doing, what Tucker Carlson is doing. But there aren't enough people doing it. And, the people seem content to say, well, Carlson has a big network. What's that network doing? This has to be turned out into the streets. If we tolerate what's been done to the United States in the most recent years, and look at what's happening, just to again go back to England. England is the belly of the beast. The Bank of England from 1688 forward was the model for how you control the monetary policy of a nation and control the nation. And they turned the British into a two-tier system, the establishment, which is a bunch of looters, and then the working class, which basically drinks warm beer and eats kidney pie and does nothing else in between birth and death. So, if that's the model for us, I don't know who would support that. And yet people do support it by sitting on their couch and watching television and listening to bad music and making jokes about how bad things are without taking responsibility.
Well, I think people are going to find out. I mean, if this doesn't get better, if it gets worse before it gets better, because there are no arrests, there is no revolution, no revolt in this country, and this is just the way it's going to be. This is the new. Then this has just been a revelation of the method. The Epstein drops are the revelation of the method of population control and the way that the ruling class rules with an iron fist And Candace just said this the other day too. It almost feels like they're saying, what are you going to do about it? If this is the truth, what are you going to do about it? And she made the note as she showed the devastation in Gaza. Do you think that these people won't do this to you as well? Do you think if they get away with this, if they're allowed to get away with what they did to Palestine and then turn it into a beach resort, do you think that they're not capable of doing the same thing to us? Bolshevik Revolution 2.0 coming to the United States if we stand for this stuff. Harley, I'll give you the final word. And again, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, I think people have to realize that we're all expendable when it comes to the standpoint of the so-called establishment. And these are a bunch of arrogant people, immoral people, who take glory in their ability to impose whatever they want on the population. And they're laughing at us. They have a sense that they can do whatever they want and we won't fight back. And I think the Epstein documents and the importance of this is not about Epstein. The importance is that it's a window into the deep rot and corruption of the establishment. You know, a lot of people will say, yeah, the establishment's corrupt, but they don't understand how corrupt, as you've pointed out in the beginning of the talk today, in terms of such things as sexual practices, sacrifices, cannibalism, and so on. But if people take seriously that this is what's going on and in our names, then either we've lost our moral fitness to survive or we'll stand up and fight. And, you know, one of my favorite poems is Percy Shelley's poem where he says, "We are many, they are few."
Yep.
And that's the way we have to think about it.
Yep. Hey, do you remember the testimony of that Dutch banker, Ronald Bernard, who wept as he told the story about how he was offered at a party to make a sacrifice of a child, and he broke down, and obviously he couldn't do it, and that's when he quit banking? Do you remember that testimony?
Yeah.
Robert? Okay. So that was Ronald Bernard, who walked away from banking, international banking, with his soul intact. You know who hasn't walked away with his soul intact, Harley? Jess Staley, the CEO of Barclays, former CEO of Barclays Bank. He's all over.
And former CEO of JP Morgan Investments.
Is that right? Yeah, he's all over these emails.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Staley
Ronald Bernard testified that to get to the next level or to be in the big club, he had to sacrifice a child. He refused to do that. So, what's the through line here, guys? What do these emails suggest? Dig into it. I wonder what Jess Staley has done so he could enjoy the good life and be in the big club, Harley.
Yeah. And Staley was very close with Epstein.
God help us. God help us. All right. Well, I guess this is the revelation of the method, or it's God literally saying, they're the bad guys, humanity. Go get them. Go get them. Round them up and try them for their crimes. Our guest has been the one, the only Harley Schlanger. Harley, Godspeed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Appreciate you. All right, guys, the links are below. Thank you one and all for tuning in. We appreciate you. God bless you and yours, folks. Pray for a shield against this stuff. Pray for divine intervention, number one, for our country, but pray for divine protection over your psyche and your soul, because this stuff is dark. And people do have to know the truth, though. All right, every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news 24/7, guys, at sgtreport.com. And until next time, may God, the Creator, continue to bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
Well, if you think about it, it is, again, a spiritual war, and you've got the demons versus, the people that believe in God. So we are the enemy.